Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the State of the AI Union. I'm your host, Laura, and joined with me today is Tamar Gill, CEO of eCore. I'm going to let Tamar introduce herself and also what eCore does.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I'm Tamar Gill, CEO and founder at eCore, and I fix bad data. In 2020, I started eCore with two main principles in mind. One was to fix bad data issues for go-to-market teams, and two was to give job opportunities to economically disadvantaged communities, specifically stay-home parents who want to contribute to their family income and grow at the same time while being around their children. And today, I'm proud that 6 years of bootstrapping, I run eCore with main principle that people first and only work with the clients where we bring the huge value. And the main thing is that we are a real proof that you can actually build something real, honest, without outside funding, without hype, and without anything that's happening today.
I love that. And as a parent of four children, I also feel that, providing parents with the opportunity to work inside their home is super important. So thank you so much for doing that. We'll come around back to that question later. But let's talk about go-to-market and data. And I was managing RevOps teams for a long time. And so I always notice this data quality problem at the time of outreach and outbound when emails start bouncing and then people complain, oh, my data is bad. The campaign isn't working. So we notice that when the effects are obvious, right? But how bad is this data problem actually?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Currently, RM data is only 26% actionable.
26. Oh,
26% actionable. So that's how big the data problem is today. Like email addresses and those are little things. When you notice that, like emails are bouncing, by that point, the damage has already spread across entire go-to-market motion. 74% of non-actionable data that breaks more than just campaigns. It breaks your pipeline, it breaks your people, and it breaks your predictions. Because everything depends on the data. Every company runs on data, right? But you know what's the scariest part? That most teams don't see how bad their data is because it looks complete. Like
right.
when they look their CRM, it
Yeah.
looks healthy on the surface, right? But underneath, sales is working wrong accounts, marketing is targeting wrong people, and RevOps spend massive amount of time, and you were in the RevOps and you know that, trying to fix the bad data issues.
That's right. That's right. And so we are already applying a lot of AI on top of the data that exists. And the data, as you said, is only 26% actionable. So we're doing a lot of outbound sequencing, lead scoring, etc., and all those things. Tell us what we should be doing with AI and the data.
Okay. Oh, lead scoring, I think AI can help with that only when your data is already clean. Now, you apply your, AI to a dirty data. What kind of scoring you're going to get? You're going to score manager that might not be relevant and you're going after VPs or directors, right? AI can just score your manager as your decision maker and many other things. So the first thing I always recommend everyone I talk to is before you apply AI to anything, check what's in there. Check your data, run the simple validation test, right? Take a random sample from your CRM and see, first of all, check employment status. Are these people still at the company? Not just, if the email is valid or not.
Yes.
Employment status, and check, are these contacts mapped to the correct accounts? Because I'll tell you a fun story about if they're not mapped to the correct accounts. And after that, check if the email is valid, right? That's the three main things you want to do quickly to fix that problem. And I'm here to help for that. We actually run free assessment, CRM validation, assessment for the organization so we can show the current state. And quick story about like why it is important, right? So my HR director receives an email that starts with as a leader of HR at the company she left 3 years ago.
No.
She received this email on her current job email address.
Yes. Yes.
So, and then, blah, 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 whatever email said. And the reason for that is exactly because when people enrich data, they don't check if the accounts and email are mapped correctly.
Yes.
So that's why like checking and validation is crucial.
Yeah. And that's really interesting also because, sales is about trust, right? And if I can't trust you to even know which company I'm working at, how can I trust you to have a conversation? So, the starting point of where we connect, I think is like super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It breaks trust right away. I would never work with them. I would never go and work with them. That's where I want to reach out and say, hey, where do you get your data? You need help. You need a better data provider or better process, right? Because they go and reach this and, oh my God, this is cool. We enriched. We got so many emails. It's perfect. Well, no, it's not. It's missing the crucial part.
And tell us a little bit more about how that validation can happen with AI. The one that you mentioned about validating a random sample set.
I did not say you can validate it with AI.
Okay. Okay. So
So
this is the validation manual then.
uh, you can use AI to help you validate, but AI is really good on like contextual reasoning. For example, AI can determine if the company is still active, inactive, acquired, merged, or if there is relationship between two companies to compare,
Mm.
or if the record is duplicate, like if two records are duplicate or not, as well as if similar name companies belong to the same organization or totally different organizations, right?
Right.
AI can help you with that. But the validation is a pretty complex steps. Like
Mm.
in our case, we have 80 plus step process that validates and enriches your data, but only after validation.
Got it. Got it. 80 plus steps. Tell us a little bit more about what those 80 steps and entail actually.
My God, yes. So it's we build these 80 plus steps based on the manual and human research that we were doing, right? So we are very focused on quality data. We advise everyone to validate before enrich. And based on all our experience, which in my case, I'm 14 years already in data space, and 6 years in my company, we learned a lot on what all is required to give you the uh, perfect data. And that requires 80 steps, which I'm not going to list all 80 steps right now, but it definitely goes through is this the right person? Is this person still at the company? And if this person is still at the company, now is the title still valid? If the title is still valid, or if the title changed, is the job function relevant right now for my, use case? Or is the seniority level still relevant? So it checks every single thing based on also your ideal customer profile, as well as validity of the record itself.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. So you're saying that the enrichment process has those 80 steps, but we only do that after we validate that the data is correct. And earlier you had said that the validation process in just sort of manually verifying that that the data records are good. Like, did I hear you correctly that that is usually a manual process just to double check that?
Not for us now. This 80 plus step includes validation as
Includes
well.
validation. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
So
Okay, got it.
yeah, first like 40, 50 steps are
Yeah.
validation steps.
Okay.
And
Okay.
after that starts enrichment.
Got it. Got it. And in this 40 plus steps that are using validation, is there a component to how AI is helping you do that 40
Of
plus
course.
steps? Tell
Of
us a little bit more about how you do that.
Of course, there are multiple. Definitely, we have incorporated AI in our steps. There are
Mm,
probably more than 30 steps where we have AI, and
mm,
mostly it is helping us determine the relationships. So
mhm.
when we give it like two different things, we want it to compare and tell us if this is, matching. For example, we have current company name and previous company name, and we want to understand, is this a change? Or is this just, some kind of merger or rebrand or
Yeah.
anything similar? So it's very good in helping in those situations. Again, when we have situation where two data points like New York and NY, like it doesn't match, right? Like, is this an error or is it just formatting issue, right? So there are many steps that AI is helping us and it making it much faster. And definitely we're training it. We're still training it. We're still teaching it because you cannot blindly trust AI currently.
Right.
But we used all our, human research experience to train the AI for that.
Got it. So, in most RevOps organizations, including my own, like we source data from multiple data providers, and they all have their own validation systems, right? And a lot of them tell us, our data is validated. It's some of them have like platinum level validation or diamond level validation, that kind of thing. What would you say is changing in the way that you're doing it today versus maybe how these other providers have been doing it for the last 15, 20 years?
So one of the biggest difference is that all traditional data providers run it against their database.
Hmm.
So they have their database of 600, 300, whatever number million records they have. So
Yeah.
the data runs against that database and it returns matches, right? It either matches or doesn't match. And then based on matches, in most cases, it's determined if the person is, valid still at the company or not. And in many cases, they don't even tell you if the person left the company, right? It will return the new data and now you have to figure out what to do with it next. Now, the difference now in our case is that we don't trust any one database. We do have our own 500 million records, and we refresh it quarterly, but changes happen daily.
Yes.
So we don't trust it. Every time we run the validation and we match against our database, that's why it's 80 plus steps. We then run it in real time to check, if even we're checking if our database data was correct.
Got it.
So that's the difference. It runs in real time to understand if this data is actually valid.
Yeah. And I also hear you saying that you are, relying on like multiple other sources as well to make sure and checking all of these different versions to make sure that your data is constantly refreshed and updated.
Yes,
Right.
definitely. We refresh our data quarterly. We also partner with many other organizations, other data providers, to increase our coverage. But anything we pull from anywhere goes to validation. So
Yeah.
none of them goes to our clients straight. It
Right.
has to run these validation steps so we can reach that 80 plus percent. I'm sorry, 90 plus percent match rate and accuracy. One quick note.
Mm.
Currently, when on the market, when the providers run the data against their database, you will see about 30 to 40% match. And with us, it's above 90% because we multiple database plus real time.
Yeah. Do you have a best practice on how organizations should be thinking about their go-to-market data and the refresh rates of it? I know, for example, from my internal customers, they're always thinking that what they want is, I want all the data all the time, like every single second. It just has to be updated in real time. What's your best practice here on using and updating go-to-market data?
It depends on the size of your CRM, right? When you're enterprise and you have millions of records in your CRM, you cannot update it all the time, right? For that, we recommend at least quarterly refresh. If you really want to do it more, like especially I'm talking about when you have 40 million records in your CRM, right? Quarterly is a good way to go because the first initial run will eliminate 40% of that data already because that 40% People are no longer at the companies anymore. The rest will get updated and enriched. And then quarterly, you will get an update on what changed, specifically about the changes. Now, if you have a smaller size data in your CRM, you can, we actually do run daily monitoring for them, weekly or monthly. Depends. If you really have high target contacts, then it's going to be daily, right? You don't need to daily monitor millions of records, right? Most common use case with us is monthly for a smaller scale, and for the larger one, it's quarterly. And again, when I say we validate their data, their data goes in real time in that moment and gets validated.
Right, right, right. And
So there is a way to maintain it without, like RevOps spending 80% of their time trying to manually fix it.
yeah, so I'm hearing like a quarterly refresh is probably,
Quarterly refresh for a really large data is good. If you're talking about smaller one, anything like under 1 million, monthly refresh.
got it, got it. What are you seeing in terms of the level of difficulty of getting accurate data today? Is it actually becoming more difficult or is it becoming easier with the different tools that we're given?
The challenge is because we take so many tools and plug them all in, and it gives us conflicting data. We are lost and we create more chaos. Again, more data providers and more tools does not mean you have better data.
Right, right.
For better data, you need maybe one or two quality data providers, right?
Right.
That
Right.
will follow your rules and your formatting rules, because you will get from many providers all different formats. And then what happens? Like, how can you segment with all these different formats in your CRM? It's almost impossible. And then routing and everything breaks because of that, right? So many providers doesn't mean you have good data. Maintaining and cleaning your data and getting to start with, right? Getting only the data you need. You don't need most of the data you get. You only need like a portion of it. So get what you need. And when you have the amount that you really need, then it's easier to maintain it. And then you don't need so many providers to give you data, right? Even, if you need millions, you don't need too many providers because it creates chaos.
Right, right. With with your 30-step validation in this 80-step enrichment, you're leveraging AI to help you with that validation. And today we've got a lot of new tools that, or I guess AI allows us to do a lot more with data enrichment and validation. What are some things that um, we can do a lot better today with AI? And why do you think more teams are not taking advantage of those things?
There is a little understanding on like how AI can help in that, right? Because some people think that you just take AI and you just create like one agent and it can fix everything. It will fix your flow, it will fix
Yes.
your data. That's not true. AI cannot magically fix your data. But to take advantage of it is exactly how we took advantage of it, right? We're using it where we are seeing that it's working the best.
Mm-hmm,
Right?
hmm.
Those few cases that I mentioned, like relationship detection, duplicate detection, and so on. So that's the best way. You need to find where you're using it best and what type of work you're trying to do, what type of validation or enrichment. AI cannot tell you if someone's, email is valid or not. That's not AI's job, right? It cannot tell you. Or if you don't give it enough data, it will not give you, especially at scale, if this person is still employed or not. AI needs to have some data, right? It needs to have current company from your CRM and current company to understand if this person is still there or not. So you just need to feed it the proper information for it to return good results.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe what you're saying is that what we've been trying to use AI for is maybe not the right application of it on the data side, and we're trying to get it to do magic that it wasn't designed to do, and as a result, it can actually become worse. It can actually become worse for you, Whereas what we should be doing is using AI for the things that it can do, for example, deduping and, sort of like maybe running refresh rates, things like that. Um, and that's probably where you would recommend people start. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's where it fits in best. Refresh maybe not, not refresh, but you have to have a process, right? You cannot just put AI on the CRM and tell, hey, check my data. That's not going to work.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
you need to have some kind of workflow built for it to check, right? But for that, you still need some other, not necessarily AI, but other steps in place for
Yeah. The
AI to
systems or
then
workflows.
check what you're asking for it to check.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, for people that are listening, or let's say buyers of data, um, if they wanted to do something different about the way that their go to market data is being used or processed, what would be a couple of things that you would recommend to them today?
One thing I recommend everyone is first diagnose your data. That's for what you have. Diagnose it, verify the, status of the person, employment status, and then everything else. That's step number one. Number two, when you buy new contacts, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that works, right? So you have target accounts and you want to buy um, ideal personas for these target accounts. So what you do is you upload these accounts in ZoomInfo, Apollo, whatever provider you have, and you want to get marketing directors, for example, directors of marketing, sales, and IT. So these are your three ideal job functions. And you need job level needs to be marketing. When you pull that list, it gives you a lot of irrelevant titles because none of the filters are perfect. You might end up with finance manager. Did you request finance manager? No. You might end up with people that left already the companies.
Mhm.
And you will also end up with people that work in similar name companies and not necessarily those companies.
Right.
So
Right.
even when you buy this new data,
Hmm.
I recommend to validate it first before you push it in your CRM or outreach. Because what we're seeing is when we do similar exercise for our customers, we remove over 50% of irrelevant data.
Okay.
And that's a big number. Now imagine how much good data ends up in your CRM. And then you put them all in the campaign that should be perfect for marketing directors, but you're reaching finance managers.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So diagnose first, like find the gaps.
Yeah.
In that diagnosis, what are some things that you recommend as steps?
Well, first definite step is, are these people still working at this company that you have in the CRM? That's number one.
How would we do that? What's the best way to do that?
Well, for one of the things, again, most of the organizations internally probably should take like 50 records and check it
Your whole
manually. Because if
you
I tell you to go and try some tool,
mm,
that's not gonna return it because only like 30 to 40% will be matched. So you're not gonna get a full picture. If you want to do a small scale, do it yourself. If you want us to test a larger scale for you for no cost, we can do it for you because that's what our 80 plus step flow does.
right, right.
They can come to us and no charge will test it for them.
Okay. So take a sample set, do a short validation just to see, hey, what are the gaps, and then as you're buying data to fill in the gaps, make sure that you validate that
Yes.
before pushing it into your CRM, because otherwise you'll get plenty of undesired records that's going to mess up all your CRM hygiene and stuff like that. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, definitely. Because without validation, if you put it straight to enrichment and
Mm-hmm.
not validate, you will end up in the situation where, wrong accounts map to wrong people and receive, send out the emails just like my HR director received.
Right,
Right?
right,
And
exactly.
then you're just wasting your money and resources on person that's not relevant for you anymore because that account was for you relevant. The one that person is now might not be relevant, right? So first you need to know if this person is still at the company or not. If they're not, you need to archive the person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you definitely want to go after this person, then get fully new information where they went, their new company information, and then, add it as a new record in your CRM. Otherwise, archive this, and whoever is still at the company, then do the additional checks on other data points, right? Like function level, title, so on. Once that's done, then whatever data points you're missing, you can use additional data providers. That's where you can apply the data providers to fill in that gap.
Yeah. So Tamar, this process used to take us like between 3 and 6 months, and we would do them, like every year or so, and it would take a long time to do all this validation because we had so many steps. What do you think are the more appropriate timelines today?
No, 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 no. Well, I mean, it depends on if you're running a really like reputable organization and you want your outreach to be also reputable, then the list is quarterly. Again, this process used to also, it was a long validation process enrichment, but now it's not anymore, right? Because now there are companies like us.
Mm.
Well, that's not correct because nobody has as comprehensive like the tool that we built.
Hmm.
Because we know what's out there. But you can partner with someone that will do it for you and you will find the huge savings. That's one, monetary savings. The second is time and your reputation, first of all. Finally, people can, your team can start trusting the data you have.
Yeah. So would you say, like, if we were doing a refresh in data, like a project like that, sort of the first steps would be sort of more like in weeks, like would start to see value in terms of in
Like
weeks.
size, what size?
Let's say, a company that has 500 million in revenue.
I mean, what size of CRM data?
Uh, 500 million records, let's say.
Oh, 500 million records.
Yeah.
That would be a database like us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we are a database that has 500 million records. And to maintain this database, we run it, we refresh it quarterly.
Okay. Quite.
However,
Mhm.
no organization, like it's just data providers that will have that many records. Otherwise, what I've seen so far is the highest numbers were, 40 million and then 80 million. And I'm talking about really large organizations. And the reason for that is that they also archive, from time to time, they archive the data. If they have 500 million, that means they've never archived the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good
So for
point.
them, first step will be remove all the and archive, and
Right.
that will be just what, and then it will be left with probably 200 million because if they've never done the validation. This 200 million and this 200 million will be refreshed quarterly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. Awesome. Tamara, let's learn a little bit more about you. So I know you're out of Pennsylvania, and you started this company out of there. What is it like? What is it like starting a company, in a place that's not like one of the hubs, like Silicon Valley or New York?
A very good question. And as you can see from my accent, I'm not originally from the US. I came from a Republic of Georgia that's part of former Soviet Union. And my background was in nonprofit organizations where we were actually making a difference in people's lives on a daily basis. So, and I was on the executive team there.
Mm.
And from, Georgia, I relocated to the US and became stay-home mom. And when I became stay-home mom, I enjoyed it for a little bit, but then I realized, I need to do more. I need to work and I want to continue growing. So I started looking for something that would help me, stay at home with my children and at the same time grow. So I found this company that was in Silicon Valley. I joined them and worked with them for 7 years. I started on their lowest role and ended up on the executive team um, because of my performance and how appreciative I was of the opportunity, right? Because I got it. I'm at home. I'm with my children. I have a job where I can grow, and it
Yeah.
was really beautiful. And then when I started eCore, I had the similar sense in mind that there are so many people out there. I mean, you don't have to be immigrant. You can be in your own country, wherever you are, but you're at home. You want to be at home with your children. You don't want to commute. But you also want to earn some income as well as grow. So that's kind of how we started eCore, and we built it, slowly to where we are today. Being in Pittsburgh definitely is a challenge because there is not many um business related things. Yes, lately we have a lot of tech companies starting in Pittsburgh, so I've been making some connections here as well.
Yeah.
But one of the main, things, because most of my clients are either in New York or San Francisco, or I do travel a lot to meet them where they at, and of course to connect with others, because as you just said, Silicon Valley is where tech company needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great story, Tamar, to be an immigrant here and also, starting your business with your kids at home. I think that's really inspiring. It's inspiring for me. What advice might you give, some younger listeners that are thinking about starting their own businesses and thinking, oh, maybe it's not the right time because of, life changes and family commitments. What kind of advice would you give for them?
There is never a right time. That's number one. Um, it's for me, it was, I felt like, jumping without a parachute when I started eCore. So I had two options: go back to corporate or start something on my own. And then I thought, um, if I can contribute so much to someone else's business, maybe I can try my own.
Exactly.
Right? So that is what gave me a little more push to go on my own and start on my own. Yes, it's a huge risk. Yes, we have statistics where a huge number of companies fail in their first, year or two, right? Um, but one thing is the key. If you start, don't have the mindset, oh, if this is not going to work, I'm going to do this. No, your mindset should be, this is going to work because I'm going to make it work. And then you write all you need to do for it to work, and then follow step by step. Yes, it's a 24/7 when you run your own company. It is hard, but it's not like 5 o'clock I can close my computer and be done. Absolutely not, because my company is like, part of my family. Like, sometimes it's personal because it's my own, right? So you care too much you want to respond to your client, like within minutes. You don't want to keep anyone waiting. You want to solve every issue right away. So it's going to be very hard, but you can do it if you really put your mindset to it. And that's one thing I always tell my children. You can achieve whatever you want. You need to think about it right way.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really, really good advice and super inspiring. And I love how you said, it's all or nothing. Like go all in. Like, like make this also your backup plan. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with today about go-to-market data or anything like that?
I want to add one thing that is currently happening a lot, and I would just like to give advice to the listeners on like what not to do.
Yes, tell us.
Is I write a lot about like what not to do, and one of them is I want to definitely mention is personalization at scale.
Hmm, that's a good one.
So what does personalization at scale mean, right? You put AI on the data you have in your CRM or whatever you have, get this data from, and then tell AI to personalize the email, right? So what happens is, what is personalization? Let's start with that. Like, why do we even personalize? With personalization, we want to show the prospect that we research their business, we
Yes.
understand their pain points, and we know their priorities. We learn their um, business model, their challenges, everything related to their business or specifically to their role. Now, at scale AI personalization, what does it do? Here is an example that I got an email. Hey Tamar, great post about clean data. We think that our medical devices will be a great fit for eCore. Like, medical devices will be a great fit for eCore. They personalized, right? They saw my post, and they think that's enough. Like, seriously, medical devices. So not to end up, and I have so many of those gems. Like like hundreds of this in my inbox. And our inboxes are getting filled of the emails that just sound the same and it's boring. So it shows that there is a poor strategy, that there is poor data, and that's poor AI usage. So to avoid that, do not apply AI at scale for personalization. Personalization, instead of blasting thousands of emails a day, send 20 that are really personalized because that will save your reputation. And for me, reputation is the key. I do care about my company's reputation, and I know there are a lot others that also do.
That's right.
So that would be one really important advice I would like to give your listeners.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamar. Really appreciate you having been on the show. And to all our listeners, if you like this episode, drop us a comment, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Lord, I appreciate that. And thanks to your listeners. I hope they learned something new.
Absolutely. Today's episode is sponsored by Computer by DevRev. Computer is enterprise AI built on one idea. That shared memory makes AI work for go-to-market teams. It connects your systems, conversations, and deal history into one living, breathing digital memory. So your teams get accurate, trusted answers and can take action with confidence. Because Computer curates the right context before it ever hits the model, you consume up to 60% fewer tokens with every call. Find out more and start your free trial at devrev.ai.